Betrayal carved through my life like a whispered secret when I found that my brother hadn't just taken the woman I loved. He stole my sanctuary, leaving behind an echoing emptiness where family and trust once thrived. "You're just jealous," he spat, each word twisting inside me like a knife. It was absurd, laughable even, but his audacity cut deep, filling the small kitchen, still warm from breakfast past, with a cold unfamiliarity. My girlfriend, no, our girlfriend it seemed, hovered, trapped in the doorway, frozen between brothers with conflicting claims on her soul. The real loss was watching the trust crumble in his eyes, once so bright, now shadowed and foreign as he smirked where she should have been. He tossed my pain aside, dismissed it as petty, his voice echoing like taunts in an unwelcome game. "Jealous," he declared, as if love was a prize ripped from my grasp. In the silence that followed, beneath the worn wallpaper of our childhood, I felt the resentment build, love curdling into bitterness, a riddle too tangled and dark to unravel alone. I stood frozen at the doorway, my breath caught in my throat, as laughter, old inside jokes now echoing new between them, twisted into silent sobs within me. The room was dimly lit, a golden wash flickering from the television casting their shadows grotesquely upon the walls. I'd meant to surprise them, I had. But standing there, I was the one paralyzed by shock. Her hair spilled over the arm of the couch, a cascade of softness I once found sanctuary in. Now, it's intertwined with his fingers as if each strand was a secret he'd always known. They're so caught up in their world, they don't notice me. My brother leans closer, whispering something that draws from her, that laugh, soft and sultry, the kind that used to be reserved for me when we shared the tether of love and trust. It's the laughter that cuts me. A sound once comforting is now a blade, each note slicing through the thin veil of denial I'd wrapped myself in. Why here? Why him? The questions assault me, pounding against the tender bruises of my heart. My fingers twitch, desperate to curl into fists, but I remain immobile, fingers splayed against the doorframe as though it might ground me among the wreckage. I want to turn away, to unsee what's now seared into my soul. It feels like forever before she finally looks up, her gaze meeting mine. I watch the warmth drain from her face, replaced by an icy, startled tension. His gaze follows, eyes widening, and in the widening, I see the fracture, hear the silent scream rising from the void they've left inside me. There's a chill that seizes the air, my whispered "why" hanging like a fragile thread between us. It's barely audible, but the weight of it descends, suffocating the remaining trace of camaraderie. She mouths something, but it's just soundless air, words that rot before making their presence felt. My brother, my blood, finally finds his voice. His lips move, framing my name, a tremor in the deep of his voice I've never heard before. It's as though he's drawing from a well of regrets untapped. Does he expect forgiveness, or is he searching for the fracture, too? I'm frozen, the rage a coil of energy beneath my skin that has nowhere to go. A part of me wants to shatter the silence, to scream, or maybe just run and never look back. But I stand there, rooted, an observer to my own disintegration. Does this betrayal redefine us all, or was this fracture inevitable, lurking in the depths, waiting for the right moment to surface? The air hangs heavy with questions, with disbelief. My world narrows to this one room, this single, devastating truth: there's no going back. His grin had seemed innocent then, a brotherly welcome, as he took her hand for the first time, little knowing the depths to which that smile would sink. I remember that day with a clarity that's bitter now. The three of us at the park, sunlight pouring through the trees, dappled shadows on the grass where we sat. He was older, confident in a way that made you feel safe, like nothing could touch us with him around. "Hey, it's nice to finally meet you," he said, his voice smooth, with a warmth that made me feel proud, as if I was giving her a gift by introducing them. She smiled back, a little shyly, but with genuine interest. It was early spring, the air crisp, buzzing softly with the promise of warmer days. Her fingers lingered in his a moment longer than I expected. I dismissed it then, chalked it up to politeness or simple curiosity. We spread out a worn blanket on the grass, and I watched them, the way she laughed at his jokes, how her eyes lingered on his face a bit too long. It felt good, having them there, my two favorite people interacting as smoothly as I'd hoped. I leaned back on my elbows, the sun warm on my face, lulled into a false sense of security by the low murmur of their voices melding with the rustle of leaves. He was telling her stories now, grand tales of travel, experiences that painted him a worldly figure. Her attention never left him, each word seemed to pull her deeper into his orbit. I should have sensed something then, the way his words wrapped around her like invisible threads. But I was caught in the moment, blind to the threads spinning their web. At one point, he turned to me with a grin that could melt resolve. "You've got a special one here," he said, nodding toward her, eyes twinkling with approval. She glanced at me, eyes bright, cheeks flushed with the praise. I chuckled, one of those deep, content sounds, and nodded. Everything felt right, or so I thought. The beginning of a new chapter, perhaps a deepened bond between us all. As the shadows stretched longer, we packed up the day's joy in a bundle of laughs and half-eaten sandwiches. On the walk back, she walked between us, bumping shoulders with each little step. She was happy, her smile radiating warmth, and I was oblivious. Oblivious to how that day sowed seeds I couldn't see, seeds that, unseen, would take root, twisting through the loam of my trust. Looking back, I realize every glance, every word, was the gentle caress of a predator, the affectionate touches that would become a fortress, keeping secrets deeper than shadows. His smile lingers still, carved into memory, where the light of day was eclipsed long before I saw the night creeping in. The table shook as our words collided in venomous volleys, splintering the bridge we'd built over years of shared secrets and stolen moments. My pulse raced alongside the echoes of my own voice, frantic, ragged, rising above the clatter of silverware against plates. It was as if the air itself had turned vicious, clawing at my lungs with each breath I tried to take. "Do you even care anymore?" I spat the words across the table, barely recognizing my own voice. It quivered, a desperate beast rearing its head after being caged for far too long. My brother, seated across from me, slammed his fork down with a force that sent a tremor through the porcelain plate below. "You think you're the only one who can feel? I've been swallowing this bile, every goddamn day," he countered, his eyes hard, glistening in the dim light. The walls of the small dining room pressed in closer, making the space feel suffocating. Mom's old floral wallpaper seemed absurd, almost mocking with its gentility, given the storm raging here now. "Swallowing?" I sneered, pushing my chair back so forcefully it toppled over. "I've been choking on it, drowning, while you pretend nothing's wrong. You walk around like the world owes you peace, ignoring what's right in front of you." He glared at me, lips pulled tight as words formed in his throat. Through that silence, the tension that had festered for years unfurled, raw and unyielding. The smell of overcooked chicken, our supposed dinner, hung in the air like a bad omen. "Don't you dare act like a martyr," he said finally, his voice venomous, deceptively calm. "I'm here, every week, every phone call, picking up the pieces every time you fall apart." And there it was, the unspoken brokenness laid out on the table between us, sharp as glass. I felt my skin prickle with heat, shame twined with anger like twin serpents. Was this what it had come down to, throwing barbs and guilt instead of words that once comforted? Every time. The tremor in my voice mirrored the quake in my chest. Every goddamn time. I've been right here, glued back together by nothing but your empty promises. I'm tired. Tired. He interjected, laughter, bitter and hollow, pouring out like a release valve. "This dynamic drains us both. But you keep clinging to it, trying to save whatever's left without admitting that maybe there's nothing left to save." The room seemed to tilt, shadows deepening around us as the ceiling lights flickered. I tried to find my anchor in the wreckage, to understand how we'd ended up at war. In that moment, I saw him as he was, just as lost, just as vulnerable, beneath the armor of hardened words. And something in me shifted, recognition threading through rage, an ember of what could still, somehow, spark back into light. "Maybe," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, words suspended in the charged air. His eyes met mine across the devastation, searching, questioning, holding on by a thread. The room felt too large as she and I sat facing each other, the stillness dense between us. I could hear the clock ticking from another world, each second a reminder of every moment that led to this, every shared laugh, every whisper of shared secrets dissolving into this heavy, hushed dissonance. Her eyes met mine, shadowed with something I couldn't quite read, remorse, maybe, or merely resignation, as the silence between us stretched unbearably taut. She opened her mouth to speak and then closed it, her words trapped somewhere between intent and confession. I was tired of filling in the gaps, of trying to interpret unreadable hieroglyphs scrawled across her face. I longed for the clear lines of honesty that seemed permanently etched into childhood memories. "You owe me an explanation," I said, my voice steady, belying the tremor beneath it. A fragile crack in my composure I refused to let widen. Her gaze dropped to her hands, fingers twisting the hem of her sleeve, a nervous dance that spoke louder than words. I watched, breath held, waiting for her to lift the curtain, to tear open the silence with something I could at least pretend to understand. "I didn't mean," she started, and I felt the air thicken again with unspoken history. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she finally said, her words falling between us like lead. I leaned forward, the ache in my chest sharp and insistent. But it did, I replied, helplessly calm, the child in me demanding to know why the sand castle had crumbled under hands that once helped build it. You made a choice. She raised her eyes, something like pain flickering there, making an uncomfortable home in the shadows. But could it truly compare to my own? The betrayal felt stitched into my skin, and everywhere I turned her actions mirrored back at me, accusations I never spoke aloud, fears she never allayed. Why am? My voice cracked, a fissure of vulnerability I couldn't hide. The question hung between us like an open wound, bloodless yet no less real. I don't. She shook her head slightly, a futile attempt to dismiss the irrevocable. I don't have answers that will make this right. Her voice was small, as if she'd shrunk beneath the weight of truth, barely scraping the surface of regret, the kind born not out of love lost, but of understanding too late the cost of what was taken. I looked past her, aiming my gaze at the framed photos on the wall, innumerable fragments of history now smeared with new, unwelcome shades. Her absence of understanding, of offering anything but resignation, punctured the last barriers, leaving me stranded between what was and what could never be again. As the silence stretched, my heart began its slow retreat into withdrawal, pulling back the trust that had once bridged the chasms between us, now a relic of a naive era. I stood up, the need for distance outweighing the gravity of answers she couldn't provide. The room felt colder, hollow. Maybe someday, I said softly, wishing it were a promise. But it was only an echo of goodbye cloaked in hope. The scent of sun-baked earth and wild thyme filled the air as I lay hidden in the tall grass, my brother's laughter ringing clear and untamed across the open field. To him, the world was a vast playground, boundaries marked only by the edge of our imaginations. We sail at dawn, Captain, he'd shout, eyes wide with mischief, brandishing his stick sword like some fearless adventurer. Back then, it felt like those summer days could stretch infinitely, bright and full of possibilities. We played pirates once, my brother and I, allies in a world where betrayal was just make-believe. I can still see the way his eyes lit up when we found the perfect patch of dirt to hide our treasure, coins from Dad's old poker nights, buried under a proud X drawn in the dust. We swore, on pain of death, that only we would ever know its location. But detached, as if the years had parted a veil on my understanding, I see something different. The way he looked at me, not like a co-conspirator, but as though calculating my every move, wondering how and when he might need to use them against me. I wish I could jump back in time, grab my younger self by the shoulders and shake loose the blind faith I wrapped around him like a security blanket. There's an image I can't quite shake, him leaning close, a conspiratorial whisper in my ear. We'll always have each other, right? And eyes trusting and naive, nodding vigorously. But who was I agreeing to? The brother who'd defend our island against imaginary foes, or the one who'd someday become my silent adversary? Even now, remembering those moments leaves a quivering pit in my stomach. His betrayal was the severing of innocence I didn't know I still clung to. It's like revisiting a favorite book, only to find unread pages, notes scribbled in margins that change everything. Scribbles no one but me seems accountable for. Sometimes, I search my memory for clues, signs written in the shaky strokes of childhood. Did those adventures plant something in him? Was I complicit in the birthing of the duplicity that would one day turn a beloved brother into a stranger? His laughter, a sound once so pure it painted skies a brighter blue, now haunts me like a discordant note in a forgotten song. The past feels suddenly traitorous, each innocent memory tainted by the knowledge of what followed. I wish I could forget, or forgive, or justifiably hate him, but each attempt feels like letting go of a lifeline to who I used to be before his betrayal shattered those days into jagged edges I can no longer touch without bleeding. The air in the living room felt thick, suffocating, as if it had absorbed years of unspoken truths. I stood there, my heart pounding like a drum I couldn't silence, facing my parents. They sat on the couch, side by side, an emblem of unbreakable unity that now seemed alien to me. My voice shook, barely above a whisper. Did you know? The question hung in the air, a jagged shard of truth threatening to shatter the facade we'd maintained for so long. Their eyes flicked to each other, a furtive exchange that spoke volumes beyond what I'd asked. It was in that silent conversation, one I wasn't invited into, that I felt the ground beneath us begin to crumble. My father's hand rested on his knee, fingers clasping and unclasping like he was holding on to something, anything, to stop the truth from slipping out. My mother, always the peacekeeper, the bridge builder, looked at me with a mixture of regret and resignation that felt like a knife twisted in my chest. We didn't want to hurt you, she said, her voice like cracked porcelain. It hit me then, a wave swelling and crashing, that the crack in our family wasn't new. It had simply splintered wide enough for me to see at last. My father inhaled sharply, a a sound that filled the silence more than any words could. Sometimes silence feels like a kindness, he murmured, as not meeting mine but staring past, into ghosts of decisions made long ago. Kindness. The word ricocheted around my head, a twisted echo that left a bitter taste in my mouth. Was it kindness to shield me from the truth, or had it been cowardice dressed up in the guise of love? I glanced around the room, at the framed photos on the mantel. The smiles frozen in time now felt like mockery. How long? I managed, the words dragging like weights over my tongue. How long did you know and say nothing? The room seemed to tighten around me, each corner brimming with the weight of their silence. There was no anger in their eyes, only a weary acceptance of the confrontation they'd avoided for so long. We thought. If it stayed buried, my mother started, her hands wringing, knotting the hem of her skirt. Do you understand, darling? We just wanted to protect you. Every inch of me screamed against that logic. It felt like love, twisted into a lie so palatable they'd come to believe it themselves. I wanted to scream, to force the universe into some semblance of fairness, but all I managed was a choked affirmation of their shared silence. A tension cut through me, the gravity of their decisions pressing against me like an iron weight. Each unspoken truth left in their wake was suddenly visible, hovering between us like specters. My own voice betrayed a hint of weariness. Protect who? I whispered, and in that question, lingering in the stillness, I felt more alone than ever. I collapse onto the floor, my knees giving out like marionette strings cut. The carpet is rough against my skin, pinning me to reality as I cradle the picture in trembling hands. It's old and creased, edges worn down from too many moments spent tracing its lines with longing fingers. Her smile, captured forever on that thin piece of paper, could be a bomb if only it didn't hurt so much to look at. Curling around the faded photograph, I let the tears fall, unchecked, forgotten even by time that promised to heal. Each sob echoes in the too-silent room, bouncing off empty walls that feel vast and hollow without her laughter to fill them. Grief is an odd, oppressive thing, pressing down on my chest until I am certain my ribs might crack under its weight. I try to breathe, but each gasp pulls another wave of sorrow to the surface. My fingers brush against something else on the floor, a bracelet, hers, delicate silver woven like an intricate secret meant only for the two of us. I can almost hear her voice saying my name, a soft lilt imbued with warmth that makes my heart lurch. How many times did I take for granted the quiet comfort of those moments? Now, that voice is an echo, slipping further away into the void left behind. I wrap my arms around myself, squeezing tight as if I could hold the broken pieces of my heart together, keep them from spilling out. But it's impossible, isn't it? Once something is shattered, no amount of willpower can piece it back to what it once was. So, I cling to remnants instead, shards of memory like glass that cut and glisten with the sheen of what used to be. The room starts spinning, or maybe it's just me, grounded yet drifting, anchored in the chaos by pain's tangible grip. I can almost feel her presence with me, a comforting specter I summon in desperation. I whisper into the space around me, words that quiver with the tremor of loss. I miss you, I confess to no one, yet to her, hoping she might somehow hear over the chasm that separates now from then. In the quiet aftermath of my unraveling, there's a brief moment of clarity, where breathing becomes a fraction easier, and despite the prevailing darkness, I feel something small, an ember's persistence against the night's chill. It's a cruel kind of hope, a whispered promise that wounds eventually scar over, even as they ache. But the photograph remains in my grasp, and as exhaustion bleeds into my limbs, I lay my head down beside it. Eyes closed, I remember her as she was, alive in my arms, our world built of whispered vows and shared breaths. Eventually, sleep taunts its presence, lurking just beyond, and I surrender to the melody of memories, the shadows folding softly around me. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, the fluorescent light blinking above me in a rhythm that echoed the chaos in my mind. My face was a canvas of tired lines and unshed tears, a testament to the relentless battle between heartache and hope. The echoes of our last conversation played on a loop in my head, each word a sharp knife that sliced through the thin veneer of calm I pretended to maintain. There was a silence in the house now that felt different, heavier. It wasn't just the absence of noise, but the absence of a future I had once envisaged so vividly. The very walls seemed to absorb the hurt, leaving an oppressive weight that pressed down on me from all sides. I closed my eyes, leaning against the cold edge of the sink, and focused on inhaling deeply, tethering myself to the present moment. Just breathe, I whispered to the reflection staring back at me, I shadowed yet defiant. My voice broke slightly, but the words hung in the air, mingling with the scent of lavender from the diffuser, the one he had brought back from a trip, the one I once loved. Each breath I took was a struggle, a tug-of-war between the crushing desire to scream out my betrayal and the burgeoning understanding that maybe this was the beginning of something necessary, perhaps even the beginning of another story, one that was solely mine to write. I turned the faucet, letting the cold water run over my hands, the shock grounding me to the reality of it all. I knew this wasn't about forgiveness, not yet. Perhaps not ever. But there was a subtle shift in my perception. In the tangled mess of emotions, there lived a flicker of resolve. The decision I faced loomed larger now. It was a path I had avoided as long as I could. Yet, beneath my hesitation lay a flickering hope, small but persistent. I lifted my head and met my own gaze in the mirror once more, searching for something amidst the wreckage, a hint, a sign, a promise of a future not anchored to this heartbreaking past. As if in answer, a whisper of tomorrow crept in through the cracks of my resolve, carried on the back of a breath I didn't realize I was holding. In that moment, there was a softness to the pain, a gentle reminder that tomorrow existed beyond the wreckage of today. For the first time, I felt the concept of healing begin to weave itself tentatively into my heart. I envisioned stepping out from the shadow, gently releasing the memories that chained me, allowing them to float away, trailing behind like remnants of a distant storm. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Breathing deeply, I allowed a breath of something light, a whisper of hope, a promise of tomorrow not bound by yesterday, to linger amidst the ache. I was scarred, undoubtedly, but ready to embrace this difficult path, one foot in front of the other, toward whatever came next. The air was cool and carried a hint of salt as I made my way down the narrow path, the gravel crunching softly beneath my feet. The sky stretched wide above, an endless canvas smeared with soft pastels where the sun kissed the ocean. I found a spot where the grass met the sand and sank down, folding my legs beneath me. The horizon seemed to stretch infinitely, a promise written in shades of blue and gold. The rhythmic lull of the waves took on a hypnotic quality, each crash a gentle punctuation to my thoughts. The silence around me felt alive, filled with the quiet conversations of the natural world, a breeze weaving through the reeds, the distant call of a seabird. I could feel the earth beneath me, solid and patient, as though waiting for me to let go, to sink into its embrace. As I stared out at the horizon, each wave washing ashore seemed to whisper truth, that time heals not because it forgets, but because it renews. The words felt true as they formed in my mind, shaped by an understanding I hadn't grasped until now. For so long, I had been tangled in the past, each memory like a rough stone in my shoe, distorting every step forward. Leaning back, I let my fingers trail through the cool, damp sand, feeling its texture shift and wet against my skin. The horizon called to something deep inside me, a voice both ancient and reassuring, reminding me that everything is part of something larger, something enduring. A kind of peace settled over me, inch by inch, like the tide reclaiming its shore. The pain I had carried, so keen and sharp for so long, softened at the edges. I realized it didn't vanish or fade entirely, but became a part of me, a scar among scars. And somehow, within this moment, I found space for it. Space in my heart for what was, what is, and what might be. The thought scared me, this tentative acceptance, because holding on had been my life raft for so long. The last of the sun dipped beneath the waves, painting the sky with its dying light. The twilight deepened, and with it, a sense of release. I felt the tears before they fell, warm as they traced their paths down my cheeks. Not from sadness, but from something akin to relief. This solitude, this moment alone in nature's embrace, had granted me clarity I hadn't known I needed. For the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled, a simple, uncomplicated gesture. Though pain and gratitude twisted together within me, I understood they could coexist, that they were part of the same spectrum of feeling, and that both were undeniably mine. In that fragile stillness, I found a small, flickering hope for what lay ahead, believing, perhaps for the first time, in the spring that follows winter's end.